Welcome to the Critical Thinking Literacy channel. I'm John Balla. Today we conclude our study of the Dunning-Kruger Effect. In parts 1 and 2, we established this effect as a cognitive phenomenon rooted in metacognitive deficit and amplified by social media. Today, we take the Dunning-Kruger Effect into its most consequential domain, civic and political life. We will look at what the peer-reviewed literature actually shows about political overconfidence, who is most affected, and what, if anything, any of us can do about it. This is the episode where intellectual honesty requires us to go where most channels will not. Let us start with the baseline finding before we address the left-right question. Research by Ian Anson, published in Political Psychology in 2018, examined how the Dunning-Kruger Effect conditions citizens' perceptions of political knowledge across a broad sample of American adults. The findings established a clear baseline. Americans in general are significantly overconfident about political knowledge. Low performers on objective political knowledge tasks consistently overestimate their performance, placing themselves dramatically higher than their actual scores warrant. More recent research by Alexander Hall and Kevin Smith, published in 2026 in Political Research Quarterly, adds important nuance. When people are asked to rate their general political knowledge broadly, overconfidence diminishes. When they are asked to estimate performance on a specific test they just completed, overconfidence surges. This suggests the Dunning-Kruger gap in politics may be partially measurement-dependent, which is a finding worth honoring honestly. The overconfidence is real, its magnitude varies by measurement. Both things are true. Now, the question this series is committed to answering honestly, even when the answer is uncomfortable for some viewers. The short answer, based on the current peer-reviewed literature, is not equally, and the research is specific enough to say so without hedging into false equivalence. Anson's 2018 study, the most comprehensive examination of this question in the political psychology literature, found that participants who were more conservative showed worse relative metacognitive accuracy on political knowledge tasks than their more liberal counterparts. When partisan identity was made salient, when participants were reminded of their political affiliation before answering, conservative participants with low political knowledge showed the greatest surge in perceived knowledge. Their confidence increased most in the domain where their accuracy was lowest. A separate study by Garrett and Bond, published in Science Advances in 2021, found that conservatives showed greater susceptibility to political misperceptions than liberals, meaning they were more likely to hold and defend factually incorrect beliefs about political events and institutions. And the vaccine and climate overconfidence research we examined in Part 2, the Mata, Callahan, and Sylvester findings, showed those patterns concentrated more heavily in conservative-leaning populations on those specific issues. Now, and this is equally important, this does not mean liberals are immune. The research is specific about where the asymmetry exists. It is equally specific about where it does not. Philip Fernbach and Stephen Sloman's 2013 research on the illusion of explanatory depth found that political extremists on both ends of the spectrum overestimate their understanding of complex policy. Left-wing extremists who held strong positions on cap-and-trade, nuclear power, and economic redistribution struggled to explain the mechanisms of those policies just as severely as right-wing extremists struggled with their equivalents. The overconfidence asymmetry documented in the political knowledge and misperceptions literature is a real and peer-reviewed finding. It is not a license to dismiss one side of the political spectrum as categorically less capable. Human cognition is the common variable. The asymmetry reflects measurable differences in how certain cultural and structural features of contemporary conservative political identity interact with metacognitive processing, not a permanent or inherent difference in cognitive ability. This is a sociological and psychological observation. It is not a moral judgment, and it does not immunize anyone. Let's examine a case study: climate science and the overconfidence paradox. A 2021 study by Matthew Mata, published in Weather, Climate, and Society, found that people most skeptical of climate science scored significantly lower on objective questions about how climate change works, while rating their own understanding of it significantly higher. Critically, This overconfidence held even when controlling for political ideology. The miscalibration was not simply a function of conservative identity, it was a genuine metacognitive failure. This is an important distinction. It means the finding is about a cognitive pattern, not a political tribe. The people most resistant to engaging with climate evidence are, on average, those least equipped to evaluate it. The double burden, low knowledge plus inability to recognize it, produces confident resistance to the very information that would correct it. QAnon represents the most fully developed civic case study of Dunning-Kruger operating at scale. Every structural feature of the movement maps precisely onto the peak of inflated self-confidence. Members were told and believed that they were among the rare few who could see through institutional deception. The movement's entire appeal was the promise of superior knowledge, access to information that experts, journalists, and government officials were either too compromised or too naive to see. The appeal was not the information. The appeal was the feeling of knowing more than everyone else. The Bose, Costello, and Tassimi meta-analysis we examined in Part 2 is directly relevant here. Acting superior, the overconfident stance toward one's own epistemic position, was one of the three strongest correlates of conspiratorial thinking across 158,473 participants. This is not a characterization, it is a data point. And the self-sealing loop we described in Part 2 had direct civic consequences in QAnon's case. Participants in the January 6th Capitol breach were documented to include high proportions of QAnon adherents. The overconfidence did not remain abstract, it produced action. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not always harmless. When it intersects with political identity and coordinated action, the consequences can be institutional. So what do we do with all of this? We do what this series has always done. We apply a standard. We demand specificity. We ask the question that dismantles the double burden from the inside. The Dunning-Kruger diagnostic question is this: can I explain this position in enough detail to satisfy a skeptic? Or do I only feel like I can? Not, do I believe this? Not, does this feel right? Not, have I read things about this? But, can I walk through the mechanism, the evidence, the counter-arguments, and the limits of my own understanding in enough detail that a knowledgeable skeptic would at least understand what I am claiming? Not, do I believe this? Not, have I read about this? Yes, can I explain the mechanism to a skeptic in detail? If the answer is no, you may be at the peak. And that is not a moral failing, it is a neurological one. The anterior cingulate cortex that should be flagging your errors simply does not have enough domain knowledge to flag them. The cure, as Dunning and Kruger themselves demonstrated, is genuine learning. Not scrolling, not sharing, not consuming content that confirms what you already believe. Learning that exposes you to the edges of what you do not yet understand. That is how the dot on the curve moves from the peak through the valley and up the slope. This is the destination. It is earned, not assumed. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not a weapon. It is a mirror. One that each of us, regardless of political affiliation, education level, or confidence in our own reasoning, should hold up to our most certain beliefs, especially the ones we have never had to defend in detail. The world gets a little more accurate, a little harder to mislead, every time one more person stops confusing certainty with knowledge. So what do we do with this? We do what James Randi did with the paranormal. We do what Bertram Forer did in that classroom in 1948. We apply a standard. We demand specificity. We refuse to accept the feeling of being informed as a substitute for actually being informed. Ask whether your confidence is calibrated to your actual understanding, or merely to your desire to be right. A citizen who cannot recognize rhetoric masquerading as reason is not an informed voter. They are reliable inventory. As you know, this channel exists for one reason: your self-empowerment, free of political or religious dogma, and free of charge. Always. Democracy runs on arguments, both bad and good. We all benefit when the quality rises. If these videos move that needle even slightly, please like and share. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm John Balla. Think critically, and choose wisely.